It's Cardboard Time, episode number 129, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, I have reviews of the Daily Weather, Pondscape, Forage, and Honeypot. Well, next episode will very likely be a pre-recorded episode, as I will be at Gamma Expo in Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm excited to get to see all the new stuff that's coming up and get to hang out with a bunch of awesome people that I love. Certainly a busy time for me. It's going to be a very hectic week, but I am definitely looking forward to it. Well, let's talk about the Shelf of Aspiration. We have not examined that for a long time. Been busy with the honeymoon and all of that good stuff, so just wanted to bring you an update. It is at 123, and that is down by 4 since the last time that we talked. 9 new incoming games. Like I said, we have not talked very recently about this. Let's talk about crowdfunding. One game came in, and that was Goats and Goblins, and I did get an opportunity to play this one. I did play this back at GrandCon, and it was something that I think I had talked about on the podcast on the ride home, was the fact that I wasn't exactly sure if I had backed it, and I'm glad that I did. Very fun kind of press your luck game where it's very reminiscent of Ink and Gold in a way. You're trying to press through a cave and see what treasures you can come up with and not get caved in. It was a lot of fun. We played it with our friends Matt and Paulina, and we all had a good time. The version that I got was so heavily produced. It had a super nice case. It had coins instead of cards that you could show if you were in or you were out. Maybe a little bit overproduced for a game of that size, but it was definitely a fantastic production. So very fun game. I would recommend checking that one out. Circus Flocati is a game that I had played all the way back last year at my home convention, and that was Cardboard Fest, and enjoyed it so much. I haven't seen it around very much. 25th Century, I think, was out of it for quite a while, and I did see this one while I was out on the West Coast, so I decided to pick that one up when I saw it. Wriggle Roulette, this was a game that I played out at OrcaCon, wound up really enjoying. Allie really loved it, so of course, when the wife loves a game, you have to pick that up. Shelfie Stacker, this was one that I saw that was on sale. I was in Portland at the time at the giant bookstore, Powell's. Powell's was the name of it. I couldn't remember the name of it for a second. And I saw it on sale. I had heard some good things about it. It looks like a fairly straightforward game, so we will see how that one holds up. But I did bring that one home. A couple of games that someone was selling locally that I had been very interested in. The first one being Kinfire Council and Clank Catacombs. Those were both purchases for me as well. So I'm looking forward to checking those out. Haven't quite gotten those to the table as of yet. From a review copy standpoint, I did get Pondscape, the Daily Weather, which I will be talking about both of those today, and Natureopolis. Natureopolis, I've only had the opportunity to play once so far, but I've enjoyed it. More restrictive with roads. Obviously, if you're out in nature, you don't want a lot of roads going through. So you just want one long road going through your tableau, and you get like big negative points if you wind up having a bunch of little tiny roads. So it's been fun so far, but not enough play to really review it and give it a good rating. From the played side, obviously I did play Wriggle Roulette at OrcaCon, as I mentioned. I did get to play Heavenly Bodies while I was out at OrcaCon, and you can hear more about my thoughts on that in the OrcaCon wrap-up episode. That was the very last episode. Puppies or Poop. That was a fun little game that we got to play at the SeaTac airport when we were waiting for our plane to go back home. We popped down at a table, and I had brought it because it was very compact, and we both had fun with it. Allie's short-term memory isn't super great, so it wasn't really her type of game, but I enjoyed it. I think it's going to be great for the younger set, and I'll probably wind up talking a little bit more about it on a future episode. Forage Shuffle Dartmoor. This is one that I played on BGA, and I had gotten a review copy of it and enjoyed it so far. I really do like Forage Shuffle. I do need to get this to the table physically and see what it's about, but I did get it to the table digitally and really did enjoy it. Pondscape, obviously, if I'm talking about it, I did get to play it, and we'll be talking about that this episode. Toy Battle. This was another one that I got to do digitally and have some fun with. Surprisingly fun. I really don't, again, I keep saying this and I sound like a broken record, but I don't like 2-player heads-up stuff that much, and this was pretty interesting. I would like to play this one out on the table. Naturopolis, obviously I've played. The Daily Weather, obviously I've played, if I'm talking about it. Duel for Cardia was a game that I got in a Asmodee influencer bag, and I did get that to the table. Better than I was expecting, and I do want to get some more plays before I do talk about it on the podcast. Trickity, this was a game that I picked up at PAX Unplugged. We had a good time with it. Yeah, I do want to play it a little bit more to see what my final thoughts are going to be on it. It's a solid trick taker. I don't know if I'm going to be pulling it out more than some of my other trick takers in my rotation. Demon Castle Mononoke. This is a game that I will have a definite review on, probably on the next episode or the episode after, once I get a few more plays of it in. But I've really been enjoying this one. This is from the folks at Cardboard Revolution who did Loam. I've loved this. It is a fantastic cooperative game filled with some pretty unique things. It goes and does some different stuff than your traditional co-op kind of does. It'll make sense, trust me. But I've really been enjoying that. And then obviously Goats and Goblins, as I talked about. So that's it for the Shelf of Aspiration. That's your update. It is down by 4, so maybe we could get it down to 120. I've got a couple of game days still coming up, so we'll see how that goes. So let's get into the reviews. I've got 4 for you today, and I wanted to start off with the Daily Weather. And the Daily Weather is a 2026 release. It is a 1-player game, plays in 10 minutes. Designed by Ian Tartar. The art is by Manon Marganet, and this is published by Button Shy Games. As the Daily Weather's newest meteorologist, it is your duty to get the weather report ready. However, you first must arrange the weather map so that only the current day and month are visible and the weather pattern of the day is visible. Can you make today's map? Determine today's unique setup by using the real-world date and season, then use overlapping cards to work your way towards a solution. Score points for more effective solutions as you try to predict the unpredictable weather. Players will achieve victory only if they can achieve the specific pattern required for the week, day, and season combination, and make sure that the only visible month and day are the ones corresponding to today's date. Players score based on a unique scoring condition for that day of the week, such as groups of 3 or more symbols clustered together or the longest column. So thanks to Button Shy Games for the review copy. This did look really interesting when they sent out the press email, so I sent out a request for a review copy. I like the idea of having a daily game that I could play in the morning to get my brain going, and that sounded like a really neat prospect. You know, there's games that kind of fit in that category, but this had that daily aspect to it, and I wanted to check that out. So I think, again, that's kind of the heart of what makes this such an interesting game is that daily puzzle and that unique setup that each day is going to have. The weekends do tend to be a bit tougher than the weekdays, although some of the weekdays can be tough with the combinations that you have to kind of cover certain days. They might be a little bit buried or hard to get to, making sure that you don't cover those dates up and then cover the other symbols up. And if you look at the cards on BGG, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, or if you go to Button Shy's website, you'll see what I'm talking about. I do find that the balance is very well done with that. I want something heavier on the weekends so I can sit with a cup of coffee and play. I might need a couple plays to actually achieve a score and complete the puzzle, as opposed to during the weekday. I just need something to get my brain going. I'm still having that first cup of coffee. I'm going to have some meetings, but I want to get my brain going. And this does that very, very well. If you keep this relatively set up next to you from start to finish, I'd say this takes maybe 5 minutes to play, if that. It's perfect to have on your desk. Keep the cards that are going to be out daily set up next to you, and you can swap out the next day once you finish with today's puzzle so that you're all set, ready to go, and you just put everything out. You start the puzzle, you finish the puzzle, you put tomorrow's day out, and then you're done. I think it really works well. That's what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks or so. As I look at my desk as I'm recording, to the left of me is the game set up for tomorrow. So yeah, if you need to go out of town, you just pack it up, you keep it in your bag, and you find a small surface to play on. So I thought that worked really, really well. The best scores are really achieved from making sure that you're balancing scoring conditions with getting the required setup at the same time. So you're balancing, hey, I have these certain requirements I have to get to even score. And then once I get those, then I get to try to make sure that the tableau that I put out matches the requirements for scoring as best as it can. So you're kind of balancing the two. That's where things can get a little bit tricky, and you might wind up making some mistakes and needing to do a couple of do-overs and try to achieve an actual score, because I sometimes get too lost in the weeds of trying to hit those scoring conditions before I've even actually been able to score. So I like that balance a lot. I think that's a pretty cool way of doing things. That said, it's not such a involved experience that you're going to be tired afterwards. I know that I said that it's thinky, but it is kind of a lighter puzzle that you're not going to be too tired out by. There's also a community already that's established through Button Shy's Discord. It compares the daily scores if you're into that sort of thing. I found it was fun to take a look at, but I didn't really want to go through the effort of participating. This is a relatively light puzzle, but I think it's great for the people that want to do it and compare scores and see what they had. I think that's a pretty neat concept that you can build a little community with that. From a vision and accessibility standpoint, everything is denoted through symbols and background shading so that there's really no accessibility issues I ran into whatsoever. So the same thing that I have come to expect from most Button Shy games, they are very color vision friendly. So for my final thoughts, this game has not left my desk in 2 weeks for a reason. I love that it's a different puzzle every single time. It's perfectly bite-sized, but I feel like I've done something afterwards. I feel like I've achieved something in the morning. I can go about my day. Sometimes I do think about the puzzle that I put together in the morning, thinking, oh, if I had only saved this card and put this down, I could have had a couple more points. And really the fact that it's super easy to switch out, it's ready to set up for the next day, it's been really cool. It's an experience that I would highly recommend. It's honestly one of my favorite Button Shy experiences so far, even rivaling Sprawlopolis. As much as I love Sprawlopolis, this game has really been fantastic. And If you're into daily puzzles or you're looking for one, not even if you're currently into them, but if you're really looking for one, I would highly recommend this. Either you can late pledge this as you're listening to this on the launch on Kickstarter, or you can wait until it's in Button Shy's shop. But yeah, definitely check this one out. Low cost to entry, and yeah, get a nice little daily puzzle that I'm going to keep continuing to do for a while. That is the Daily Weather. And let's move on to the next game that I'm going to be covering. That is Pondscape. This is a 2025 release. 1 to 4 players, 20 to 35 minutes, designed by Thomas Holick, and the art is by Jiri Kus. This was published by Capstone Games. And Pondscape is a strategic card game for 2 to 4 players that you can also play solo, lasting around 30 minutes. In this game, players create their own vibrant pond by carefully placing cards featuring various frog species and pond environments while collecting different insect types. The core mechanisms involve grid building and card management, with pond construction as a spatial puzzle. In each round, players choose cards from a shared display and add 1 card to their pond, aiming to fulfill specific conditions set by different frog species to earn points, with larger groups of the same frog type yielding even greater rewards. A unique shared mechanism revolves around the jumper frog, which is a central figure that hunts insects and other food. All players will influence the jumper frog's actions and compete to gather insects that can provide bonus points during the final scoring. Careful planning and resourceful play will lead to the most balanced and flourishing pond. So thanks to Capstone for the review copy of this. First of all, this is frogs, and probably one of the reasons that it might have been sent to me. I do have a bias towards the theme, so take that for what it's worth. I do like spatial puzzles a lot, and in this game you're going to be working towards finding out what frogs do work best together. So the more of a single type of frog, the more points you're going to score as long as you meet that frog's condition. In addition, if you have a couple of them that you have a lot of frogs for, you will also be scoring a lot of points. So, the other thing is the fact that that's also based on what shows up in the display. Some of the frogs don't want you to have a lot of different species on the board. There's some that want a lot of water. There's some that want to be around a lot of other different frogs. And it's a matter of what comes up and how you kind of synergize that on your board and build out your tableau. I do think that this game really does reward players who are able to think on the fly. They're not going to necessarily be locked into a specific strategy. Realizing when you might not be able to capitalize on something that you've been building up because those frogs are dependent on certain things. And you look at the board, you look at your hand, and you say, oh, well, I'm going to pivot to something that I'm able to actually do pretty well, and then see what I can build out from here. I think that that is really the key to doing well in this game. I'm personally a fan of adaptive puzzles, so that is definitely a plus for me. I like that. I know that some people aren't necessarily going to be a fan of that. This game also does play very well solo. There is very little upkeep. The solo opponent always does find a way to take the card that I want. Having 3 cards in the display, there's a pretty good chance that you're not necessarily going to get the one that does come up that you necessarily want. Sometimes that is going to go away. So you have to work around that, and you have to figure out what you want to do. This also packs a good amount of gameplay in a small box, with the playing time meaning that I can get a couple rounds in with the people that I'm playing with after I've taught it. I will say, as far as the teach goes, the symbology is a little bit confusing for some of the frogs at first, but there's nothing too terribly complex or overwhelming. It is a good idea to have the rulebook out for reference on your first play or two with it. Once you are experienced enough, it's a little bit easier if you're learning from somebody, as opposed to having to learn from the rule book. and having to deal with those symbols. You have a teacher that's inherently going to say, okay, these frogs need this, this, and this, and can remind players, as opposed to you having to go and identify what those symbols are for yourself. I do think that the art is very well done. There's a lot of good art here with some very good frogs being featured, so I really liked that a lot as well. I like the balance of building out your pond not only with frogs, but also different types of foliage and water that are going to get you these different bonuses. There is a lot going on, especially with this jumper frog that determines what food you can actually get. That food is going to give you bonuses at the end of the game as well. So there's a lot going on in a very small box. So I did like that as well. From a vision and accessibility standpoint, all the necessary information was conveyed through symbology. I didn't have any issues, so very well done job on that. So for my final thoughts, again, for those who don't like the adaptive game types where you're reacting to a changing card market, where you might not necessarily get what you want in this perfect strategy that you've built up, you're probably not going to enjoy this one. You're going to think it's a little bit too random. And that is something that I could see some people criticizing this game about. If you're like me, though, you enjoy developing a strategy on the fly, you pivot to what's available, and you do the best you can with what's available to you, and you enjoy spatial puzzles, I think this is really a very solid option for you. This one's sticking around on my shelves. I've really been liking Thomas Holek's games. I also love frogs, so obviously this one is going to stick around and hopefully coming to a convention near you because it's portable and I would love to play it with some more folks and not just solo all the time. Well, my third game that I'm going to talk about is Forage, and this is a 2026 release. This is 1 to 6 players in 15 to 30 minutes. I'll challenge that a little bit. At the higher player counts, I do think that it takes longer. This one's designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankiewicz. The art is by the incomparable Beth Sobel, a lovely human being, and this was published by Flat Out Games. Forage is a puzzly tableau building roll and write game for 1 to 6 players with gorgeous artwork by Beth Sobel, and I would agree. It is designed and developed by the team that brought you the Calico, Cascadia, and Point Salad series of games. The rules are simple. Roll the Forage dice and reveal a unique journey tile each round. Choose a combination of dice and carry out one of the actions: exploring, storing, or gift giving. As you carry out actions, you'll earn bonuses that allow you to power up your future actions or make additional moves to complete your goals. Use your time wisely. There are several journeys that you can take to collect knowledge, experience, and prestige. Once you've completed your turn, you'll choose one of the 3 types of cards to draw and add to your tableau, giving you more ways to combo and complete goals. Completing exploration cards involves traversing trails through the forest and collecting bonuses by surrounding them via a spatial puzzle that extends as you add cards to your tableau. Completing pantry cards involves storing goods in jars and unlocking bonuses as you complete rows and columns within your shelves. Completing gift-giving cards involves collecting specific ingredients in the exact quantities to produce gifts, providing you with immediate and endgame scoring bonuses. There are over 90 unique exploration, pantry, and gift-giving cards to collect, so you will have a completely unique foraging journey each and every time you play. 6 unique double-sided goal cards and 27 unique journey tiles also encourage player interaction and strategic thinking throughout the game. So thanks to Flatout for passing the review copy of this and Honeypot through me. This came at a fantastic time for me, considering that I'm missing the Pacific Northwest after our honeymoon, and seeing the art on the front of the box, this reminded me exactly of our hikes throughout the Hoh rainforest up on the Olympic Peninsula. So I was kind of magically transported back to a place that I have very fond memories of recently. So it was very serendipitous timing that I got this when I did. The most interesting thing about the game is the fact that your tableau does evolve over time. You add to your options with the exploration cards kind of intersecting and interacting with each other. Choosing which cards you want to add to your tableau each round is pretty interesting as well, allowing you to kind of craft a strategy based on what comes out. In addition, you can trade your drafted cards in for additional time if you don't like what you drew. You're essentially trading in options to fill in for some extra time to use for bonuses, or you can use that additional time to help you fill out these cards. So it's kind of a nice little balance that I really did like, and I thought that it was pretty interesting. The dice that you roll are also grouped at the start of the turn and organized on two sides of a card. There's a special die that's always placed directly in the center of the card, no matter what's rolled. And then any dice that match are put to one side. Those are going to be used in the store and gift actions, with any non-matching dice that are going to be put to the other side that can be used in the gift and explore actions. So based on how that die roll kind of turns out, that's what you have to work with. Because of this, and like I said about Pondscape, this is going to reward players who are able to adapt to what comes out, utilize the options that are available the best. There's going to be turns that exploring seems like an absolute waste of a turn because you only have one die other than the special die. So you're going to want to use one of the pairs that comes out, and vice versa. Sometimes you'll have one pair and the rest will be unique, and then exploring's like, hey, this is a no-brainer. So it's really a matter of keeping your options open while still not just having a bunch of extra cards sitting there and not doing anything for you. So I really did like that balance and that flow of the game. I thought that that was very interesting. I will say that each game of this I've played so far has felt unique due to the cards that you're going to receive at the end of each turn. The goals are changing from game to game. The journey tiles that come out are going to give you different things. Each of the games I've kind of focused a bit more heavily on one aspect, but you do need to pay attention to the other two to get the bonuses to kind of cascade things. So sometimes you need to pivot based on what's coming out, and sometimes it works out for you. When it does work out and you have a couple of turns that don't necessarily feel as great, and you get that turn that you're able to cascade a bunch. And I saw a couple of people, we played this yesterday, and I saw a couple of people at the table say, hold on, I've got stuff that I'm trying to use. I've got this I can mark off that I can go do this. And I really like that in a roll and write. It does make it a little bit heavier, a little bit more complex, but I do like that cascading, chaining kind of feeling. That does come out here quite a bit. So there's a lot to juggle here. It isn't a simple roll and write, and that is one piece of feedback that I did hear from my playgroup, and I do kind of tend to agree with. Despite it not really looking like a spreadsheet at the beginning of the game, you've got 3 cards to worry about. This does get pretty expansive over the course of the game, and you're going to be trying to figure out all these different options, and you can actually close yourself down into a box if you give up some of those cards a little bit too much. You take the time for them, and you don't leave yourself some accessible options to, give yourself bonuses and make those cascades happen. So that is one thing that I think makes this a little bit heavier than some other roll and writes. And some people aren't in it for, they want to roll and write to feel a little bit lighter. This is going to be a little bit to the heavier side, a little bit more meaty. Not terribly difficult to teach, though. I was able to teach it pretty well, pretty easily. I got a couple of plays in solo and then went to teaching it to other folks, and it really didn't have much trouble getting people up to speed and going after that teach. So as far as the vision and accessibility of this game, this was not the final version of the game that I got. I don't know what the final version will hold. I did have a little bit of an issue with color matching to the dice to the pantry card jars, if that makes sense. There's differently shaped labels on the jars, though. They do correspond to each of the 3 types of ingredients. Once I figured out which corresponded to which on those, I was okay. There was also a color element to the gift cards, and using the colors to identify sets that you needed to fill in the box that I did have a little bit of trouble with as well. But again, not the final version of the game, so hopefully that'll be taken care of before this releases. So for my final thoughts, people's opinions on this are going to very heavily depend on what you're looking for in a roll and write again. If you want something a little bit more meaty but yet compact, I think this is a great option to take a look at for you, especially if you like the Pacific Northwest like I do. But if you want a roll and write that you can kind of casually engage with, this might be a pass for you. So kind of take that into account, what you're looking for. You want something a little bit lighter, maybe pass. But if you like a lot of really crunchy decisions, a lot of chaining, and a lot of cascading, I think that this could be a very good roll and write option for you. This and Honeypot, by the way, are going live on Kickstarter February 17th, so that is the day that this episode releases. So you can go check those out today. And that was Forage. And the last game that I wanted to talk about today was Honeypot. This is also a 2026 release. 1 to 6 players in 15 to 30 minutes. Again, I think at the higher player counts, you might go a little bit longer than that. But I would say at the lower player counts, this one's pretty accurate. Designed by Joseph Z. Chen, and the art is by Kwanchi Moria. This was also published by Flat Out Games. Honeypot is a quick and simple I stack you choose game for 1 to 6 players with delightful artwork by Kwanchi Moria. In Honeypot, players take on the role of secret agent bears, trying to gather the best intel and spy supplies without getting stung. Players arrange secret caches for their opponents and carefully sift through the secret caches passed along to them. The question is how far to dig for valuable intel and spy supplies. Have your opponents passed you the sweetest honey or a swarm of bees? In this thrilling game of setting traps and trying to avoid them, only the agent with the best instincts will capture the best set of items to come out on top. Honeypot is a set collection game featuring a massive deck of cards, so each round the combination of items is a new puzzle. Your goal is to arrange cards into groupings that will encourage your opponents to take the combinations that harm them, while also trying to determine how they have arranged the cards for you. It's a delightfully interactive puzzle that evolves as the game progresses, and your tableau of cards grows. Try to collect the best intel and supplies, but beware, you may end up with items that detract from your score based on the other items you have collected. So once again, thanks to Flat Out for passing this review copy through me. I do generally shy away from I cut or I stack you choose games. They just really don't resonate with me all that well. For those who don't know what that is, this is a mechanic that players will choose basically a set of items. They will choose how to divide them or lay them out, and then they pass that ultimate decision based on what they've divided out to their opponent, and the opponent has to make the decision on what to take into their tableau. Sometimes the remainder goes back to you, and then sometimes the remainder goes off to somebody else. That said, even though I don't typically like these types of games, I do really enjoy Joseph's games, and I heard some rumblings about how good this game was, so I did want to check this out and see what this one was all about. Starting with the box art, this whole theme of spy bears in a game called Honeypot is so incredibly well done. Players are leaving traps for other players in the cards that they pass, and I think thematically this really did integrate very, very well. The core scoring mechanic of this game is set collection. There's a lot of similarities to some of the sets in Sushi Go, that kind of feeling and flavor, but a lot of cards where you don't necessarily want too much of something. And I think that that's important in making this game work, is that you really don't want too much. You don't want to get too greedy. And when you get past those cards, that's where you have to make that choice. And I think that that makes this really, really interesting. The game does start off kind of slow. It's a bit trepidatious in the first round. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this thing. Once players have cards, though, that's where the magic really does start to happen. And players can really start to get a sense of what their opponents may or may not want. And therefore, they're going to be able to tailor the cards that they pass to try to trick the other player into taking something that's a little bit less than optimal for them. And that's where things get really exciting. There was definitely a moment when I was playing this for the first time that I was like, oh, this is the magic of the game. I get it now, and it's a very exciting thing when it clicks, and that is after that first round. Really going into round 3 is where it starts to hum along and really sing. There is a lot of room for table talk in this game, and trying to kind of coax players into using their swipe tokens, which will basically get them extra cards from the remainder of what other players didn't take, in case they might be able to be tricked into getting cards that might ruin a potential point scoring opportunity for them. So there is a lot of interaction, a lot of fun table talk that goes on in this game. And I think that a lot of times the games I review tend to be a little bit more towards the multiplayer solo kind of thing, where there's not a lot of interaction. And that's one of the complaints that I constantly hear, on the games, that they're like, well, you're not interacting with people. This is full of it. So if you're into interactive games, this is going to be for you. And I really think that the table talk does kind of shine in this game and becomes a lot of fun. Due to the large deck, there might be some times where you can't necessarily avoid sending really good things to your opponents, but you just kind of have to minimize their ability to score really well on them. So pairing different things off and, kind of tricking them and playing that mind game, I think is still important, even if you are sending them a lot of really good options. This game did drag a bit at a fuller player count, so at the 6 player count, there was some downtime for players who didn't have any swipe tokens left. They used them up early. They kind of felt a little bit bored at times and feeling left out. I feel like 4 is really the absolute sweet spot for this. It encourages a lot of player interaction, but it keeps things going really, really fast. And I think that that's kind of the sweet spot. It plays decently at 6, but you may see some players kind of start to zone out a little bit as other players are taking their turns, and if they don't have those swipe tokens to get those extra cards. From a vision and accessibility standpoint, absolutely no issues with color vision with this whatsoever. All the identifying information was symbol-based, so I thought that this one was very well done on that front. So for my final thoughts on this game, when I think of I cut, you choose, I think that the interesting part of the mechanic is kind of the mind games that you can play with it. And I've found that other games, in my opinion at least, haven't really utilized that full potential of it. I always kind of think of New York Slice as the de facto example of what the mechanic is, and I never quite got the satisfaction out of that game that I wanted. Honeypot really does allow players to try to psych their opponent out and try to think, hey, I think I just need one more pull. I think that they buried these cards. I'm going to get the really good stuff here because they put the cards at the bottom, only to find that they left a huge trap for them and put the cards that they wanted like in the middle or at the top. Now, I think that the unknown factor here really does suit the mechanic well. I love what that does for this game. I am very excited about this coming out. I want to utilize the time that I have with it to play this a lot more because I had so much fun with this. I think that this was a fantastic game. Really, really well done. Again, the theme is baked in so incredibly well into the actual mechanics of the game. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun, a lot of great interaction. And this one is one that I will absolutely be backing on the Kickstarter when it launches. So that is Honeypot. Well, that's all that I had for you today until I head off to Gamma Expo. Again, I probably will be doing a pre-record just to make sure that you have something to listen to while I am out in Louisville, Kentucky, enjoying myself and trying to cover some of those games. So you'll get to see the new stuff, the new things I discover that I'm going to be really excited about. If you have anything that you're looking forward to, if you've had anything that you've heard might be at Gamma Expo that you want me to check out, make sure to get a hold of me. Let me know. What do you want to see? What are you excited about? But anyways, if you want to know more about Cardboard Time, you can always go to the website. The Instagram is at cardboard_time. The Blue Sky is at Cardboard Time. The Discord is on the Tabletop Express server. You can always email me at cardboardtime@gmail.com or go to the website for an invite to that, a wonderful community that we have over there. And any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, you can always email cardboardtime@gmail.com and I will get back to you or talk about it on the show. And for the LGBTQ plus community, things are tough, but the world is better with you in it. As always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.